Now making their way to the microphone, it's Daniel Cormier and Ariel Helwani.
Back in your life on this second week of November 2020. Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to a brand new edition of DC and Helwani. That's DC, Daniel Cormier. I'm
Wrong
Helwani.
side again. Wrong side
No,
again, but it does not matter.
This is
Wrong side again, but it doesn't matter.
I'm Ariel Helwani. DC, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm back home. I'm back home now. I mean, when was the last time I did a show from here? We haven't been using
like a month.
It's been a while, right? We haven't been able to see the beautiful DC and Helwani logo.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I'm ready to be back. I wanted to be back in front of my red glove, you know? I'm happy to be home.
Yes, red glove for the A side. I conceded that to you. And of course, here I am in front of my backdrop as well. DC, so much to talk about this week. We've got so much to get to. I love this show, by the way. The topics are great. It's an eclectic mix of topics, but I would be remiss if I didn't wish you. We didn't talk yesterday. You actually ghosted me, and we'll get to that later in the program. But yesterday was National Cappuccino Day. So I had one
in
year
the U.S.
in the U.S. and Canada. But even better than that,
National Cappuccino Day
today. DC, did you know that today is National Louisiana Day?
What?
Yes,
there's a Louisiana Day.
National Louisiana Day recognizes the state that brought us such treasures as jazz, Creole, Mardi Gras, and of course, the great Daniel Ryan Cormier.
That's what I'm talking about. Happy Louisiana Day. That's what I'm talking about.
Did you know that?
Jazz, Creole, not Creole, whatever they're Creole, and Daniel, red beans and rice, gumbo, jambalaya. There are a number of things that the great state of Louisiana has produced. None greater than the New Orleans Saints. Because after last night, we're riding high. I know you Buffalo Bills fans are so happy you won 7 games for the first time in 20 years, but we just did what we're supposed to do. So when everybody's happy about Tom Brady and, oh my goodness, Antonio Brown's on the team now, and they're going to the Super Bowl, everybody before the game, give me your picks. Tampa Bay across the board. We laid the smackdown on them. Drew Brees led the boys. Oh, when the Saints go
marching in. Hey, shout out to Jameis with the what do you do there? The W in the mouth? I don't know what that's all about.
Yeah, eat that dough.
Yeah.
Eat that W.
Okay, in any event, National Louisiana Day, a very happy to all of yours, and you, of course. Now, let's talk about another guy who had a big dub this past weekend. Let's talk about the 41-year young Glover Teixeira. Wow. Glover Teixeira turning back the clock once again. He has won his 5th fight in a row at 41 years young. This man, who not that long ago was getting pieced up by Alexander Gustafsson. Remember that fight? Getting knocked out by Anthony Johnson. Remember that? Now here he is, weathering an early storm and a late storm from Thiago Santos. Looked to rock him early in the fight, late in the fight, gets him via RNC in the 3rd round. And so first of all, let's just give the man his due. Glover Teixeira, I didn't see this coming from Big Glover. One of the nicest guys in the game. I didn't think that he would still be a factor at 41. Are you impressed?
I mean, I'm so impressed. He's doing it better than the rest of us at 41. I mean, think about it. Glover Teixeira smashing everyone. I remember when he fought Misha Cirkunov, and Misha Cirkunov was supposed to beat him, and that was going to be the nail in the coffin, right? Glover takes this dude down, goes to town, and finishes him. And then the performances kept getting better and better with the bigger the name was. Now, when these guys went up for middleweight, they all had immediate success. They ended up fighting for the belt, fought very close against Jones. But again, it's a bit muddy. The water's muddied, right? Because when you get the right matchups, you get into a title fight. But you got those guys like Glover hanging around, the guys that have been around forever, the guys that are lifetime 205-pounders, and Glover's putting those dudes in their place. It's insane to watch him weather the storm and just truly implement a game plan that he's done since day one. And I remember when Glover Teixeira lost to Rumble Johnson, he had kind of fallen in love with the power, right? Remember he had won 18 in a row, fought Jones, lost, didn't even try to get a takedown with Jones, got beat up, pieced up. When he fought Rumble, he started falling in love with Mike Tyson. And it was all the hands, right? Glover was going to knock you out through the right hand, left hook. Got knocked out by Rumble, reinvented himself. Now he wrestles. And when he's wrestling, as he's wrestling, these guys have nothing for him. and he dominated Thiago Santos. This fight, I heard my man Dominic Cruz, who's one of my great friends, and I love him. He goes, but how do you judge the first round? I'm like, Glover Teixeira won the first round. He beat the crap out of Thiago Santos, and then in the second round, got hurt, got almost stopped. But you always knew that the moment Glover found an opportunity, he was going to end up on top and do what he does. And man, so impressive. And you watch these fights, and you watch Glover almost get that choke in the end of the first round. You think, how soon until he goes back to that position? One moment he got on top, I mean, his jiu-jitsu looked fantastic. Wrestling, he's tough, man. And he is really continuing to fight at the highest level of the sport at 41 years old. It's very impressive.
Look, Santos is a great story as well, coming back from those knee surgeries. 500 days almost after his loss to John Jones, an inspiring loss to John Jones. But to me, it was all about Glover. Santos did look good early in that first.
He's such a powerful guy. He hurt Glover Teixeira. I don't dislike Thiago. I think he's a great guy. But what's looking good? It wasn't anything sustained. He knocked him down.
He enjoyed success. How about that? He enjoyed success.
He had a moment of success in the fight in the first round and in the second round. But for as long as that fight went, Glover Teixeira was winning. Right? Glover Teixeira was winning the fight and winning the fight impressively. And I don't know, man. We got to start managing how we measure success in the world of mixed martial arts.
I like this. DC coming out hot. You're saying that we're giving out too much praise, huh? That's what you're saying.
I'm saying, because people have moments, right? And I think that because of the story, Thiago Santos being so inspirational and going and coming back after all that time, it's like he knocked Glover down. But that wasn't sustained. Glover Teixeira won that fight, and he dominated that fight.
Glover Teixeira, the 6th oldest light heavyweight to score a win in the UFC, but that wasn't really the story. The story going into Saturday, DC, which we talked about last week, was, all right, so Dana White announces 7 days before this fight that they're going to go with Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz, the light heavyweight champion, for the next light heavyweight fight. Is he moving up from 185? We debated this last week, all that stuff and more. So the story to me going into this fight between Glover and Thiago was, could the winner, and in this case it was Glover, do enough to convince Dana White and brass to change their mind? Could he do enough to make them call an audible, right? That was the story to me going into the fight. Now I'll ask you, did Glover Teixeira do enough to make the UFC call an audible?
So when ideas start to build momentum in the mind of the boss and the organization, it's hard to really get them off of that course when they're going down that path. But when I watch Dana talk about the fight after and say, I don't disagree with Glover, I think now it becomes a matter of when is Jan available? When is Israel available? Jan coming out publicly and going, he deserves it. Izzy can wait till that's great for Glover. But it's hard to really get the organization off that path of, oh, this is the next big thing whenever it starts to come to fruition, especially when Monday morning you hear we may do Israel versus Jan and the world blow ups, right? If it's met with a little bit of lukewarm reaction, maybe. But when it blows up and it gets as hot as it does, and mostly because of what may come next, because listen, Izzy Jan is a great fight. But what Izzy Jan does, it puts you a little bit closer to what may come next. It's 2 big fights, right? That fight leads to 2 fights. It leads to Izzy Jan, Izzy Jones. Glover Teixeira, I just don't know if that'll be enough. I would hope so. I want to be very clear. I hope Glover Teixeira gets the fight for the title next. But I ultimately understand that Glover wins that fight. What happens now? You know what I'm saying? What happens now? It's not as much as Jan and Izzy and then Izzy versus Jones.
Well, luckily for you, I'm a big-time journalist, a big J, if you will. And I spoke to both Izzy and Jan last week, so I got a sense for their timelines and what they want. Jan says he can't fight before March. He can't fight before March because he's having a baby, and the training situation in Poland right now with the lockdowns isn't great. Izzy is itching to return in February. So that's why in his tweet he said, if Izzy can't wait for March, I'll happily give the fight to Glover Teixeira. Okay. That's why he said that. Okay. Thanks for watching my interviews. I appreciate it. Now, here's the thing. Let's play out the scenarios, right? Because we do have to acknowledge that meritocracy doesn't always win in this sport, right? It's a business at the end of the day. They're trying to sell the most amount of pay-per-views at the end of the day. Does it make more business sense for the UFC? Because I agree with you. Glover deserves the next title shot. The next time the light heavyweight title, I want to make this very clear, is defended, Glover Teixeira should be fighting. But that's not the world that we live in. It's not a very fair, clean world, right? So,
and if you're going to talk about what makes the most sense, it has to be Adesanya. Champion versus champion, him going up, the idea that it could lead to Jones, it will top Glover in that way. And it honestly makes the most business sense, but Glover should be the guy fighting for the belt.
Well, let me ask you this then. Why not call the audible? And for our international fans, this is a football term. You change the play, you change the direction. Why not call the audible to Izzy versus Jones, Jan versus Glover? This is your chance. Why not? Doesn't that equal? In the end, aren't we getting 2 kicks of the can here? Now, Glover Jan, is it the big time pay-per-view fight that Izzy Jan is? No, but hey, you could get Izzy. Is Izzy Jan bigger?
Well, you get two. You get two because here's the deal. You get 2 pay-per-view. You can get 2 pay-per-views out of one. You do Jan Glover with the light heavyweight title on the line. That still can main event a pay-per-view.
Can it?
If it doesn't do great, it'll still do something. But then you also get Jones versus Adesanya. No title needed to main event this pay-per-view. Here's the issue. If you do the one fight, you get there quicker. And for the people like myself who love the build, you don't get Izzy getting the title and then that being a part of the story with him and Jones. But there's no guarantee he gets the title if he fights Jan Blachowicz. So it's like you run the risk of him losing. And if he loses to Jan, the whole Jones thing is like almost, it's not nearly as big, if I'm being right. So it might as well get him in there right now. Just as you said, it's dangerous to have Jones in there with a heavyweight and then try to bring him back to fight Izzy because you run the risk of him getting beat. So that works. It does work in that sense, but I just don't know if they're going to do it.
But DC, aren't you pleasing everyone if you do this? Because let's be honest, who's clamoring right now, as fun as it may be, for Izzy versus Jan? Who was talking about this 10 days ago?
Until they said it, right? Until they said it. And when it was said, the reaction was like, oh. But again, I truly believe the reaction is not for what happens right now. It's for what comes of it next. And I think people get excited anytime you get a step closer towards Adesanya versus Jones.
But that's what I'm saying. Make everyone happy. I'll tell you who's clamoring for Izzy versus Jones. The world is clamoring for Izzy versus Jones. So you do Izzy versus Jones. Izzy doesn't have anything at 185 right now, especially considering the fact that Darren Till...
Let me tell you something. This is another thing. Robert Whitaker. He has something. Robert Whitaker. Poor Rob. Poor Rob.
Rob got thrown under the bus, let me tell you.
Poor Rob. Rob wants to fight. And I'm so happy to see Rob come out and say that last week. It's out of character. Not Robert Whitaker. He's not a guy that beats the drum, right? He doesn't make noise. He takes his time. But last week he goes, hey, make no mistake about it. I want this fight. And I'm not going to fight anyone else. I should fight for the title. So he does have something there. It makes sense. Ariel, go back to my career. I got beat by Jones in January. I fought Rumble. I fought Allender, I think. I was scheduled my next fight to fight Jones. It was only 2 fights after that loss that I was right back to fighting Jones. Had a lot of the same elements as Adesanya versus Whitaker. The bad blood, like each other. One guy won the fight. So it's not like winning 2 fights can't get you back into a position to avenge a loss. I think Rob's story in the way that he's getting overlooked, quite frankly, is really kind of bad.
So in the end, DC, what do you think they do? What direction do you think they go in? In the end, do you think they say, Glover, you're a nice guy. We like you. Yes, in a perfect world, you deserve it, but you're going to have to wait because DC, can I just tell you something? If Izzy fights Jan at 205 and wins the belt, Glover is not.
He's got to go back to 85 to defend that title.
Either 85 or heavyweight. That's the problem with these moving up weight classes fights. That's why I like the UFC to stay away from them. Even though they can be fun, it muddies the waters. It holds up divisions. It makes things a little complicated. And it frustrates guys like Glover who deserve a crack at the title. So do you think that happens? And if I'm Glover, if it does happen, I'm kind of screwed. I'm about to be 42 next year.
Yeah,
can't wait around.
It's rough for Glover. I sympathize with Glover. I want him to fight for the championship. But what I think happens is he ends up in one of those reserve situations where he's in training camp alongside those 2 guys, hoping nothing goes wrong. And If a guy falls out, he fights. If not, he kind of gets paid his show money and then has to kind of wait. Sucks, but it's the truth.
So maybe a guy like Alexander Rakic, a guy like him.
I'm not doing that if I'm Glover Teixeira. I'm not doing that. I'm
What,
not
you're going to
risking
wait?
his position. No, I'm not doing that.
Oh, that's crazy. Get paid,
I'm not doing that. If I'm Glover, I'm not doing it no more. I'm not doing it. He's fought everybody. He has earned his title fight. I'm not doing it. I'm waiting. I'm going alongside with them.
At 41? You're going to wait?
41 years old. No, yeah. He can't wait. Bro, he cannot go fight one of these young dudes. I mean, he just beat, how old's Thiago Santos? 35, 36? Before that, he beat
Anthony Smith.
Anthony Smith, who's mid-30s himself. They just keep getting younger, bro. The guys just keep getting younger from now, and he keeps fighting these young guys, and eventually one of those guys will get him. I mean, he almost got knocked out Saturday. That's how close he was to not being in the position he's in today. I'm waiting if I'm Glover.
So in the end, you think they go with Izzy versus Jan? They
Yes.
continue that plan, and Glover just kind of has to either wait or take a fight if he wants to.
Take a fight or train alongside those guys and hope someone falls out.
Right. Nah, it's unfortunate. And certainly you would think that he deserves it. By the way, shout out to the old guys because in the co-main event, Andre Arlovsky, who's also 41, won against Tanner Boser. They became, Glover and Andre, according to ESPN Stats and Info, the first pair of UFC fighters 40 or older to win in the main and co-main on a UFC card. So, I mean, if you're asking me, it felt like they were sticking it to you. They were saying, look what we could do. You know, we can win fights in our 40s and you can't. That's what it felt like to me, but maybe you read it differently.
Let me tell you something, man. When you're scheduled for 11 championship fights in a row, you know, when you're scheduled for when your last 11 fights are scheduled for 5-round championship fights, it's a little bit different. That's a different 41, you know, because I was fighting all the biggest, baddest dudes over and over. But here, hats off to those guys. Andre, for a guy that just could not take a punch earlier, he's doing fantastic now, and I'm happy for Andre. Andre's one of the first guys I trained with when I started doing this thing, and I'm very happy for both of them. Yeah, he came to AKA and trained, and all I did was wrestle him. Couldn't stand with him, couldn't strike. I wrestled him the whole time, and he's like, this isn't sparring. This is this dude trying to wrestle me the whole time. So he's a good guy.
This is when he was trying to like figure out his career. He went to AKA.
Yeah, back in like 2009. Back like 2009, he was at AKA, and
I didn't know that.
Training there for a little bit, and all I did was wrestle him. He was like, this isn't training. This is this guy trying to wrestle me the whole time.
Okay, well, it sounds like you're saying that fighting Stipe isn't the same as fighting Tanner Boser, which seems like a crazy, statement on your part. But nevertheless,
I mean, listen, it's a little bit different. I was fighting 11 championship fights down the stretch. That's from 35 to 41, straight down.
Okay, enough puffing your chest out. Let's talk about some other news that happened late Friday, DC. Unfortunately, we're not getting Jack Hermansson versus Darren Till on December 5th. We are getting Jack Hermansson versus Kevin Holland, DC. Kevin Holland is attempting to become just the third UFC fighter in the modern era. And what do I mean by modern era? I mean post-Zuffa when they stopped the one-night tournaments. So third UFC fighter in the modern era to go 5-0 in a year, right? In a single year. The other two, Roger Huerta did it back in the day, and Neil Magny did it as well.
Well, I mean, a lot of fighters now are trying to just be as active and busy as they possibly can. And there's another guy or someone that's fighting again very soon that's going to have that opportunity. But that's crazy with the level of competition that if Kevin gets past Hermansson, that he had to do it by defeating.
So, but here's the thing. Number one, let's be honest, he hasn't been fighting the Jack Hermanssons of the world, right? Like he had that moment with Izzy. Izzy's reply was basically like, you're not really in the conversation. Is Kevin Holland ready for those kinds of guys? Like all respect to him and respect to Hermansson, who by the way said 5 people turned him down. So I feel for the guy, but do you think Kevin Holland is ready to make that? Is he a player at 185?
Well, let me pull my deal up right now. I'm trying to look at Kevin Holland's record going forward and who he's fought. Now, I know the kid is extremely talented, but a lot of times all we need is an opportunity, right? As fighters, every single time you walk into that octagon, you believe that you're a better version of who you was before. So to Kevin Holland that lost to Brendan Allen last year, I'm sure he thinks that he's better today. And by getting in there with a guy that is a submission threat like Jack Hermansson, proving that he can go with him and not only survive that, but beat him, tells him that he is exactly where he needs to be to challenge for a championship. These are the moments that these young guys hope for, man. And I don't know if Kevin is ready for it, but this fight and this type of matchup will prove whether he is or not. But hats off to him, hats off to Kevin for stepping in there on short notice in such a dangerous fight. And hats off to Jack for even taking it, because that's one of those fights where how much do you have to gain by fighting a guy like Kevin Holland, who's long, dangerous, can strike, can stand, when you're the guy that's like right around the top of the division.
I spoke to Darren Till briefly on Friday. He said, I asked him, did the old knee injury just not heal properly? What's wrong?
You and Darren Till actually talk.
Oh, did I just break kayfabe for a second?
Yeah, you broke kayfabe. What are you doing?
What are you talking about?
You know better
than
this.
Come on.
This whole thing's been going on for a year now. I thought Darren Till was going to have to beat you up. I was going to have to defend you.
Oh,
Wait,
bad.
You guys talk.
I don't know if you know this,
Oh, my
DC.
goodness.
DC.
You're pulling the curtain back too much.
Khabib and I talk every day, too. Khabib and I talk. I'm friends with all these guys. Even Khabib.
Wait, what?
Come on.
That's fake news. Fake news. That's not real, man. You're not talking to Habib every day.
All right, fine.
All right.
So he told me, because I asked him, he had knee surgery. I said, did it just not heal or did you re-injure? He said it was a bit of both. So hopefully we see him back. He handled it very well, sent good wishes to Kevin Holland. Here's the big question to me going into this fight, DC. I don't think we have ever been, in recent memory, since at least I've been doing this late into a year where there isn't a clear-cut fighter of the year. This is crazy. In the male divisions, right? Fighter of the year. There is it possible if Kevin Holland wins his 5th fight in 2020 that Kevin Holland is the male fighter of the year? We could go down the line. Like usually it's a champion, right, DC? Usually it's a champion that kind of has the, okay, Stipe fought once, right?
Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns has to be in the conversation. He's fought two or three times.
Did Gilbert Burns fight in 2020? The guy hasn't fought in like 8 months. I mean, let's be honest.
He fought twice. He fought in June. You got to chill with the Gilbert Burns.
I'm just saying. Come on, Gilbert Burns went from being the Cowboy Cerrone of the UFC to being like, I'm just gonna squat on my title shot.
Because it's his title fight, right? I understand, but like I think Gilbert Burns is in the conversation because the high level of competition that he fought. If Kevin Holland gets past Jack Hermansson, but here's the issue, man. Anytime you have guys that are fighting for championships, immediately it just jumps a guy that's kind of fighting. Now, Davis and Figueiredo, right? Davis and Figueiredo fights and beats Alex Perez. Now you're looking at a guy in Davis and Figueiredo who knocked out Joe Benavidez at the end of last year, right at the very end, right?
Early this year. He'd be 3-0.
Was that in December or January?
February.
Okay, in February. He knocks him out. They don't give him the belt. Right. Comes back, beats Joe B up again, gets the belt. He beats Alex Perez impressively. Now you're looking at a guy that's a champion that's fought 3 times, that won the belt, defended the belt. You kind of lean towards a guy like that.
Points because he missed weight.
Yeah, but then going back and beating Joe in an official title fight in the way that he did, and then say he looks impressive against Perez, how do you deny that? So I would like to think that there's a world that we live in where a guy like Kevin, who is now starting to make his way up the ranks, can become the fighter of the year. But I don't think that that's possible right now.
There's not a clear-cut answer. And there's another one. I'm surprised you didn't mention him. Your boy Khamzat, right? If he wins on December 19th.
Still again, though, I just think that we don't live in a world where a guy that isn't holding the championship is considered fighter of the year. Go back to 2015 and you tell me fighters of the year if you can remember them. You seem to remember all this stuff.
Yes. Lest we forget, DC, my fighter of the year last year, unless you want to count the BMF title as a real title, was Jorge Masvidal.
Jorge Masvidal was wearing the championship. Jorge Masvidal was wearing the championship. So it's like exactly what I'm saying. So last year, Masvidal, Masvidal may have won it on yours, but at the end of the year, most people said that who was the fighter of the year?
It was between Masvidal and
Israel Adesanya, right? Who was also
I thought Masvidal did enough.
2018, myself. 2017, who was it?
Man,
think about it.
You're putting me on the spot. You're putting me on. It's always a champion. It's always a champion.
Yes, I don't think we live in a world where they're giving fighter of the year to guys that aren't wearing champions.
Okay, so that's the thing. Like, okay, 125 is Figueiredo, 135 Petr Yan. If he wins, what about Petr Yan? Or if Aljo wins, could be in the conversation, right? December 12th, they're fighting. Could be in the conversation, but it's not clear cut.
Aljo beats Sanhagen. Who did Aljo beat in the beginning of the year?
That's it. So it's 2-0. No clear cut. Okay, 145. Volkanovski will be what, 1-0, not clear cut. 155. Khabib 1-0. Gaethje would have locked it up if he would have won. If he would have beaten Khabib, right?
But he didn't. 170.
170. Usman only fought once.
85. Izzy
in the conversation. 2-0.
Izzy's fought twice. Izzy's fought
but the
twice.
Romero fight, everyone bagged on it.
I think at the end of the year, when we look at the fighter of the year candidates, it'll be Davison, Izzy, Blachowicz, and maybe like a Khamzat Chimaev. Like one guy will be in there that doesn't have a championship if he beats Leon Edwards. But yeah, it'll be one of those champions, man. Sorry, Ariel. I know you want to live in this fairy tale world where everything is cupcakes and rainbows, but hey, sorry, it's not cupcakes and rainbows. You got to be holding 13 pounds of gold most times to be considered the fight of the year.
I'm just trying to say, if he wins his 5th fight of the year, he should be in the conversation. I also acknowledge it's never been this wide open this late. Like usually by now, like you just beat Derek Lewis in early November, you locked it up, right?
Yes.
Masvidal just beat Nate Diaz in early November. It's usually, by the way, the MSG fight. Like Conor beat Eddie, he locked it up, right? It's usually the MSG card, which would have been this past weekend. Very, very sad. And it was a beautiful weekend in New York City. But unfortunately, we're not getting that. So anyway, respect to Kevin Holland for stepping up. And I think it's a really, really interesting fight going down. That's December 5th. So that would be the what would it be? The 3rd to last card, because we got the 12th and the 19th. Now, DC, that wasn't the only piece of news. We actually got some news earlier this morning. Kayla Harrison is allowed to fight for another promotion. She, of course, being the face of PFL, she's been given the green light to fight just one time for Invicta on November 20th. But what's most interesting about this is, and she'll go back to PFL next year. They're expecting to return in May. She's fighting at 145, DC, not 155. Are we opening the door to a potential teammate versus teammate title fight in the near future? Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes.
Here's the interesting part about this. I think there's layers to this, right? First off, smart by PFL. They should let all these fighters, when they cancel their season, they should give them the opportunity to go and compete other places. Now, obviously you can't let them go fight Bellator or UFC or anything like that, because then they're stuck. But all these other organizations, Lance Palmer should be fighting somewhere. These guys should be taking fights in other places just to supplement their income. I know they're getting a little monthly stipend, but it's probably not enough, right? But for Kayla to go to 145, this was the weight class that people got excited about her being in when she started fighting. But everybody was like, well, she's a little too big. She might not be able to make the weight. Tells me that Kayla's very disciplined, very focused on the task. She obviously still has to make the weight, but her taking on this task as an Olympian tells me that she's going to do everything in her power to ensure that she makes this weight. And she gets to 45. Her Amanda, her Cyborg. There's some interesting fights, and that weight class starts to look a little bit more like alive when someone like Kayla Harrison enters it. The last judo Olympian to go into a weight class like that broke down the barriers and got women into fighting in the UFC, the great Ronda Rousey.
I think there is a desire to fast track her. Do you think let's say she wins this fight. And by the way, the last time Kayla Harrison weighed 145, she was 17. She told me this. She was 17.
She's big. She's a big, strong girl.
But does she have the skill set to even hang with a Amanda Nunes right now?
I wouldn't even force her in there right away. You can take your time. You can take your time. Even if she came to the UFC, right? You give her a couple fights, match her up with Felicia Spencer. You match her up with a
Megan Anderson type.
Megan Anderson, like those. And we can't discredit Megan because she's fighting for the championship. So you don't know if at that point she'll be the champ. So I think you take your time a little bit with Kayla. Give her a little more time to mature in the fight game and then see what she really can become. Because what you don't want is her being a one-trick pony when she gets to the top of the sport, because they get exposed in that way.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I believed and I said that the 145-pound division is on the line on December 12th, meaning if Amanda Nunes beats Megan Anderson, she will have wiped out the division. There's no one else. If Megan Anderson wins, now you could talk about an immediate rematch in 2021. It breathes some new life into the weight class. I wonder if her fighting at 145 on November 20th, her being Kayla Harrison, maybe gives the UFC a little bit of pause. Maybe this thing is worth keeping open for another year to see, because she can't make 135. That's for certain.
No.
Maybe you keep it open for next year. See, because Kayla Harrison to me is marketable. She's fun. She's got a tremendous backstory, 2-time Olympic gold medalist. So I wonder if they keep it around for her. Some other news and notes just very quickly before we transition. Mike Perry is going to fight Tim Means on November 20th. Unfortunately, 21st. That's the next pay-per-view. Unfortunately, Robbie Lawler had to pull out. So it's going to be Mike Perry versus Tim Means. On that December 19th card, we're getting Wonderboy Thompson versus Jeff Neal. So a big time fight for Jeff Neal at 170. And we finally get to see the NMF, the nicest Wonderboy Thompson. How about Carlos Ulberg, a CKB product, winning on Contender Series last Wednesday? Looked phenomenal in the cage, but also is just a tremendously good-looking man. I mean, let's just be honest.
I mean, those good. You can fight too. Like, you can be good-looking and not be able to fight. And there's a problem. He did a good job knocking his opponent out. But the Contender Series last week was insane. I mean, those knockouts were crazy. The kid that two kids just stepped back and kicked each other in the face with a front kick. When Anderson did this to Vitor, we thought it was the most amazing thing we had ever seen. It happened twice in one night at the Contender Series. I've always said, Ariel, this is the greatest place to try to go find talent, because guys just lay it all out on the line because they're trying to earn these contracts. It's fantastic. I'm excited about November 21st. I get to watch Mike Perry fight. I also get to watch his girlfriend corner him, if they're doing that still. I mean, I don't know if that's happening with her being as pregnant as she is.
Darren Till as well.
But I would love to be there as she corners Mike pregnant.
Oh my God.
They actually added another layer.
They upped the ante.
They upped the ante to this whole story, Mike and his girlfriend. I'm excited about Wonderboy and Jeff Neal. These are great fights. And the Tim Means Perry fight is a great fight because those guys are going to kind of go out there and just let it all fly. It's going to be fun. But, man, can Jeff Neal, the hands of steel, the young prospect, the good-looking kid, looks just like his father, can he put another performance like he's been putting out? Because if he does, Ariel, Jeff Neal will truly start to come into the light as a real contender in this weight class.
But dare I say, nothing made you more excited. Nothing was more exciting to you than Mr. Beast in 25-8 winning his Bellator debut last Thursday.
Did you see that? Did you see my guy? Guy Corey Anderson do his thing? Did you see him out there? Had some brand new Jordans on. He's like, thank you, DC, for the Jordans. He was looking fly. Normally you see Corey. Corey got on some camo shorts. Corey looks like he's always in the woods, But he went out there. He looked kind of nicely.
Styling and profiling.
He realizes now he's where he can be the man. He understands that he can go be the man there, and he's carrying himself in that way. I got to work with my boy on the post-fight interview a little bit.
Yeah, still, he was a little bit.
Corey, my brother. We got to kind of work on the post-fight interview. Call me. I answer the phone for you. I'll help you out. But performance-wise, look fantastic. I mean, Melvin got up in his face. Melvin looked so big, but he did his thing, man. I was very happy for him. Great job, Corey.
He should be fighting Vadim Nemkov, their light heavyweight champion, next,
right away.
Who's a great. But I hear they're going with Nemkov versus Phil Davis, and I'm just being honest. Like, I love Mr. Wonderful. That's not the one that gets me excited. Like, go with the hot hand.
Fought already, right? They fought. It was a close fight,
and it was
a close fight. But the reality is, for as much as we love Phil, Phil's a great guy. The new guy. I mean,
go with the hot hand.
Again, you have two fights. You can get two fights out of Corey Anderson. You get the Nemkov fight, and then why not Phil next? And then Bader. Like, you get all these fights out of Corey Anderson coming into Bellator. Like, I think they got to do. I think give him the fight with Nemkov. Let's see how.
Nemkov's really good.
What's his name?
Vadim Nemkov.
Vadim Nemkov. Let's see how Vadim Nemkov does with Corey.
Okay, so that was good news. Unfortunately, we got some bad news late Sunday night. We found out that a main event that was supposed to happen this coming weekend, which I was so excited for. This was such great matchmaking, and the timing was so great, right? You have Khabib retiring, supposedly, for now, and you have his understudy coming through in his first main event against the former champion RDA, who's always a tough out, who fights anyone, who doesn't get enough credit for that main event in Las Vegas. You've been, saying that he's the future of AKA, he's the next champ. Islam Makhachev, everyone's so excited to see him in this spot. He's been having some tough times finding a big time opponent, and here he is. And then we find out late Sunday that he is out of the fight. I'll come to you, Mr. Journalist. Is there anything you could tell us about this breaking news?
I haven't really spoken to him about that. Like, honestly, I found out just like you guys did. Yesterday, we were on a group message, me and Habib making fun of each other about a wrestling match. So I only imagine, because I know that, Umar Nurmagomedov was in the hospital with a bad staph infection. Yeah. Habib had the mumps. I mean, other people may have had it. And when Islam says it's something that's affected the team, because I think that's what the translation was on his Instagram, that everybody's kind of come down with it. I think it might be mumps or something. I don't know. I haven't spoken to him.
Okay.
I'll shoot him a message and see
You
what
want to call him
happened.
right now, maybe?
It sucks that he is not fighting, because now what? You know, we had this timeline, right? I mean, last week I gave you the timeline. I was like, let's do one now. Let's try to fight before Ramadan. And then when he comes back, hopefully he's in the title picture. Now that all gets pushed back, and hopefully he gets one before Ramadan, because he'll be going away.
Yeah, and I feel bad for not only Islam, but I feel bad for RDA as well, because this was,
unless RDA, who again, I love how forward these guys are getting now, because he goes, hey, Michael Chandler, right? He's like, hey,
there's no chance. No chance.
It won't happen.
Zero
but at least he shot his shot, right? Hey, Mike, these guys aren't just waiting, because guess what? Maybe it doesn't happen this weekend, but maybe a card in December, they go, you know what, Chandler, you do need a first fight. Former champion, big name. Maybe it happens. You don't know what happens when you try to speak it into existence like that.
But we need a main event for this weekend, so you kind of have to keep RDA on this card, right? I was thinking maybe how about like an Alex Hernandez type who looked good a couple of weeks ago, right? Got back on track. He's always game. I feel for RDA, because I agree with you. He's shooting a shot. If you're Michael Chandler, you're not taking this fight. Like, why would you even entertain?
But this is the thing, though, right? Like, you're saying you're not taking the fight.
Yeah.
We were just giving credit to Jack Hermansson for saying, okay, Kevin Holland, sure, I'll fight you.
This is 6 days notice.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking this weekend. I'm
talking this weekend. No, I'm talking this weekend.
That I think RDA might be in trouble for this weekend. I don't know if he's going to be fighting this weekend. So who's the co-main event? Like that, who's the co-main event? Because that might be what has to happen. I don't know for a fact. But if I'm RDA, I'm like, hey, man, I'm a former champ. I've got a big enough name. They put me in there with a Michael Chandler.
All things considered, if we're being honest, the UFC has had a tremendous pandemic, if you will, because this could have happened on every card, right? Like people getting sick, people getting this, people getting that, bad luck. It just seems like there's bad luck all around the place. To the best, they lost Glover and Thiago a couple times. They lost the Gilbert Burns fight, but they've actually had they've had some years where, remember, there was like a main event falling through almost every week.
Yeah, it was crazy. So, it was crazy.
The main event right now, it's a tough sell. It's Abdul Razak Al Hassan against Chaos Williams. The co-main event, excuse me. The co-main event.
Yeah.
I don't know who's gonna jump up here.
Like, don't laugh. It's like when you laugh.
You made me laugh. You made me laugh.
Because when you laugh like that, then I laugh, because it's contagious. And then it almost feels like I'm insulting Chaos. And
he's a tremendous name, Chaos Williams. I mean, he deserves to main event.
Chaos Williams, and you notice I said Chaos because I don't know the other one, and I remembered Chaos. I was like, oh. Yeah.
So we'll see if they are able to figure out. I think you need to figure out a way to keep RDA on the card, because he's a name, and even if it's against a non-ranked guy, maybe an Alex Hernandez type, we'll be able to see. By the way, speaking of RDA and Islam, I just wanted to give a quick. We talked about him last week, and then it's crazy. We talked about him last week, and then he popped up in the news. Did you see Kevin Lee's new tattoo?
Oh my goodness!
This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I love it.
It's the same tattoo I've ever seen in my entire life.
I love it.
You remember how mad everybody got mad at Mike Tyson for getting one on his face?
No, this is better.
Have you seen the back of Kevin Lee's head? It's his whole head. Who does that?
But it's the back of the head, so it's less intrusive, right? It's not in your face.
The back of the head and goes down his neck. Like, I don't know why. Yeah, that was a little bit crazy for me. Could you imagine how bad that hurt?
Oh my God! Especially bad. How many tattoos do you have?
I don't know, 3, 4.
Which is the most painful?
Probably the one on my calf, honestly, because it was just going apart on that soft part of the skin in the back. That sucks a little bit.
That's why I feel like the back of the neck must have killed, right?
And the needle's like hitting you. If it hits the bone, anytime it goes across the bone, it sucks,
Why'd he do that?
Hey, this arm was a little skinnier back when I got my first tattoo, so you could actually get to the bone and the meat.
That's right.
Right now, this is all meat. This big 25-inch, this python right here is meatloaf. Before, when I was a kid, this was just a nice little chicken leg. Now this is a full meatloaf sandwich. Look at me.
Look at that. Ooh, look at that. Oh my God.
I'm so strong. I can't believe how strong I am. Like, I literally can pop your head.
Like that? Like the watermelon, like Ben Askren does?
God. I didn't think that in retirement I could get stronger, but like now I'm like feeling.
You've been
myself.
working out more, apparently. I could see it in your face.
Yeah, working like this. Ariel. Ooh. That's why my arm's so strong, like
Just the right. Hey, by the way, when's the last tattoo? How old were you?
Plus, I actually like when Ezekiel Elliott does that, he's like, feed me like, you don't eat like this, right? He's coming back. It's like a different direction. The spoon comes towards the face, not back out towards the field. Come on, Zeke, get it right, man.
I hope someone makes many gifts out of this moment right here. I mean, it's just, I would love for you. We can make a deal one day. You and me get tattoos for the show.
No. You can't get a tattoo.
I can't get a tattoo. I would break that rule.
No.
I would break that rule. No. You and me get tattoos. Maybe a big back one like Brock Lesnar had with the skulls and everything. Just consider it.
That clutch.
Just consider it. Now, DC, by the way, last week, and I want you to share one because I'll tell everyone. You told me this story beforehand. This is why I'm bringing it up. But I want you to tell everyone this story because it's an amazing story. I didn't even know this about you. So last week I stumbled upon the fact that it was I think, what was it? 26 years or 24 years? Let me look it up. It was November 5th, 1994. Big George Foreman. Why are you so skeptical of me?
Man, I get very nervous when you start doing like, oh man. It's like I get a little nervous. Like I'm like, where's this guy going with this, man? Like I don't understand. Okay, go ahead, finish.
November 5th, 1994. Big George, 46 years young, knocks out Michael Moore to become the oldest heavyweight champion in boxing. And I brought this up to you, and little did I know, I thought I knew everything about you at this point, including your tattoos. I didn't know this story meant so much to you. Tell us the story. Oh man.
I was at Northside High School in Lafayette, Louisiana. Like I said, I'm just a kid from the north side of Lafayette.
Yeah, that's right.
We're at Northside High School. I'm in shop class. Anytime my teacher did movie days, he would show this fight. He was a massive George Foreman fan. And all the kids would fall asleep. Everybody would put their head down on the desk and they would go to bed. I would watch that fight, Ariel, every single time. And in that day, I had started wrestling before. I was like, man, I've got to be doing something combative, right? So for me, combats was wrestling, but I knew that it could push me forward, do something in that realm because I wanted to do and be and have those moments like George Foreman. It was obviously I thought it would be an Olympic championship or something like overcoming the odds, but I remember watching and I watched George get beat up by Michael Moore for a long time. And I watched George kind of be a little bit slower. He did not look like himself. His pants were really high up. Notice I always wear my pants really high up. His pants were really high up when he was fighting. And George is waiting. And then boom, boom. It was like in slow motion. Michael Moore goes down. George Foreman is now the oldest heavyweight champion in the history of boxing. Something that won't happen again. I mean, Bernard Hopkins won a title as he got older. He beat the best boxer in the world on that night. Michael Moore was the heavyweight champion. And it was something that stuck with me so much, man. I watched that fight every time. My freshman year, I may have watched that fight 7 times in that class. Anytime my teacher decided it was a movie day, he showed the George Foreman versus Michael Moore fight. And I didn't know why. I can't remember the guy's name. I really can't. It was a tall white guy. He was a shop teacher. Always kind of moved a little bit slow. He was towards the end of his tenure. I think that's why we had so many movie days.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of checking out. Movie day. I'm like, hey, can we watch the Foreman fight? Listen, there was a reason he showed us that, right? He showed us that to show you that you could do anything. And I believe that's what we learned in that fight.
Amazing. And later in life, you got to hang out with Big George. Got to rub your hands.
He's the best.
Right?
I love George, man. I went to the Houston Youth Center. Who would have thought George Foreman's Houston Youth Center I would have gotten to go to and train at? It's man, your life, like you never know what your life is going to turn into. And mine has just been a fairy tale.
And you're kind of like the MMA version of George Foreman.
I mean, I wasn't even 40, man.
Physique wise and age wise.
Hey, at 40, I didn't want to fight after 40. So what I was like, I'm retired at 40. Maybe I should have. I
think you're not done. I think there's a chance you come back around 45, 46 to
46 years old
to pay homage to your childhood hero, Big George Foreman.
Oh my, could you imagine?
What a story, right? What a story.
The only way I would do that if Stipe still the champion, because he'd be just as old as I am. Nobody wants to fight those young guys, man. You crazy?
Okay, so that was a good story. Also, anniversary last week of UFC 230, one of the all-time great heavyweight title fights, you versus Derek Lewis at Madison Square Garden. I mean, an instant classic.
This was the greatest performance.
How many minutes did you train for that fight, do you think? Like, how many minutes?
My
Like 15?
shorts, let me tell you something. The Derek Lewis fight was the first time that my shorts had to be 2X. I never had 2X, but I never had 2X fight shorts. They've always been extra large. I was like, I had to get 2X because they were squeezing my leg so much. I was like, there's no way that I could fight with my leg being squeezed so much on the thighs. They called me 3 weeks before. Hey, DC, this is Mick Maynard. DC, you think you're from Texas? DC, you think you fight Derek Lewis? I mean, his balls is hot. You think you want to fight Derek Lewis? His balls is hot. I was like, wait, what? He was like, yeah, man, he just knocked out Volkov. I was like, Derek, you sure you ain't gonna try to give me Stipe? You know, like, gotta give me the old ring. No audibles. I'm like, hey, no audibles.
Switcheroo.
You promise it's Derek, because I don't want the fight contract to come and it'd be okay, yes, it'll be Derek. I said, okay, and how much money? They're like, this much. I was like, okay, I'll be there. 3 weeks. I
remember. Your hand was messed up.
I said, Thiago, could you come? He goes, when D? I said, tomorrow. Send me flight, please, brother. Broken hand. Hey, yeah. Broken hand. Had to get not broken, but I had like bad wrist, cortisone shot. Boop, boop, boop. Show up at MSG. Hey, I got to headline the Garden. For a week, I was the king of New York. I was king of New York for a week. It was the best.
The first time and until now, the only time that the heavyweight title in the UFC has been defended at Madison Square Garden, which is a big deal considering the boxing heavyweight title fights that have happened there. But what about that morning? Earlier that morning, you just glossed over this when old man DC sneezes. How bad was that sneeze?
That's when I realized the clock was ticking. That's when I realized that the clock was ticking. I get up to run, and I'm like feeling good because you play tricks on yourself in the morning. I feel so great. My back's not bothering me because remember, 3-week training camp, a little bit heavy. I weighed like 250 some pounds for the first time in my career. I feel great. I go to the bathroom, sneeze, choo, go for my morning run. I'm like, Bob, I can't do this. Thank goodness for Heather Linden. She massaged me and everything else for 2.5 hours in the middle of the day and then told me lay on a hot pack. What are those things called? The heating bag? The little heating pad?
Yeah.
I laid on top of that heating pad for 2 hours after all that massage. And eventually I got up and I was like, wow, I can fight. I almost lost the heavyweight championship without actually fighting. So it was.
Were you close to pulling out?
Bob was like, if this doesn't clear up, like, hey, DC, I know. I said, Bob, chill. If this doesn't clear up by 3:00, then we're done. You're not fighting. I'm like, Bob, I'm fighting. You know how Bob gets, right?
I love your
If this doesn't clear up by 3:00, then you're done. I'm like, wow, 259. I'm like, Bob, I feel great. He's like, are you? I was like, I'm good, Bob. I'm good. Yeah, he was tripping, man. It was crazy though, man, because you just never know what's gonna happen. But wow. And I mean, I fought valiantly. I had to dig deep. I had to dig deep in that night, Ariel. I got punched one time by Derek. Khabib actually sent me a message the other day. He showed me taking Derek down, and he goes, brother, you remember this guy punched your eye right here. When Derek was falling, and he punched my eye like this, he goes, he punched your eye, brother. I said, I know. And I had a black eye from one punch. That's how hard Derek Lewis hit. He punched me going down as he was getting taken down, and it literally made my eye just swell up the next day.
I love the build up to that fight was great. It was, the Popeyes stuff, and he gets the sponsorship, and he felt like you were disrespected. It was such a bizarre fight, but they made it happen. It was. I ended up
getting the Carl's Jr. sponsorship.
You did, yeah, that's right.
We had a rivalry built on fast food. It doesn't get no better. We had a rivalry built on fast food because Derek actually says things like, "My balls are hot," and then I said, Derek, why you want to fight me? He disrespecting the Popeye chicken. In his deep southern drawl, like, come on, Derek's the man. But listen, hey, Derek can wrestle now. Thank God I didn't fight him back then because now you can't even hold Derek down when you take him down.
Well, we'll find out on November 28th when he fights Curtis Blades. That's coming up very soon. One more anniversary for you. 23 years ago today, DC, a 15-year-old Ariel Helwani was high atop the Molson Center in Montreal, the infamous Montreal Screw Job happened. I was there. My fan claim to fame, as far as sporting events are concerned, I was there when Vince screwed Brett, DC.
This is the craziest. This was the craziest moment.
Yes.
This may still be the craziest moment in wrestling history because at that point, I understood it's a work. It's a work. Everything I saw in the Blackham Coliseum, everything I saw in the arenas, every time I saw WrestleMania, it wasn't real. It was all a work. And then it went off the rails. I mean, Bret Hart takes the bell. Remember, he took the bell and he slammed the bell down. Then he spits at Vince and he's drenched in sweat. Shawn Michaels takes the belt and runs out of there as fast as he could. This was the craziest moment I had ever seen in wrestling, and it was like a train wreck that I couldn't take my eyes off of it. It was.
Were you watching live?
I watched it on pay-per-view. Yeah, dude. At that point, I bought every single WWE pay-per-view.
It was WWF at the time.
WWF. I bought every one, and it was insane. But if you paid close enough attention, right? Like Dave Meltzer, I bet Dave Meltzer knew that something was up because Meltzer would have known the contract was expiring. They weren't going to re-sign him. He probably knew something was up at the time, but we're all just watching as fans. And it just all went completely bananas, man. It was great.
It was confusing in attendance because we didn't have the commentary and it wasn't quite sure. Did he tap? Did he not tap from the sharpshooter? I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary Wrestling with Shadows, but if you haven't, do yourself a favor and watch it today on the anniversary because he had a camera crew. Brett had a camera crew following him.
I watched it.
Oh, you did? Okay, it's phenomenal. Well, anyone out there, Brett had a camera crew following him for a year and talked about the contract, and they offered him a 20-year deal, and then they rescinded the deal, and then he went to WCW. He did this in the crowd. He did the WCW with the fingers. 15 years old, and Brett was my favorite athlete as a little kid. When I would go to the doctor, DC, and I would get a shot, and I was afraid of the needle, my mom would tell me to close my eyes and think of something that made me happy, and I would think of Bret Hart winning the heavyweight championship. That made me happy. And so to see my guy get screwed, which ultimately led to, I think, the WWF turning in its fortunes into what it became, the Attitude Era, the whole thing with Mr. McMahon. That was a crazy moment. 23 years ago today. It's crazy how quickly time flies.
He was the best. Brett was the best. Brett could really
best
wrestle.
Best there was.
Brett could really wrestle. But when he went to try to reverse that sharpshooter and the referee jumped in, it was TV like you never could have imagined. It couldn't happen today, right? That could never happen again today because everybody's so hip to what's going on. Man, that was nuts. Brett was the best.
And very quickly, as we round third, shout out to Terence Crawford fighting this weekend against Kell Brook. That's a great fight. There's a lot of great programming on ESPN regarding that fight. Our guy Sean O'Malley became a dad this weekend, DC.
Really?
Sean O'Malley became a dad,
I didn't know that.
How about that? Mazel tov. And Mark Coleman, your guy, my guy, in the hospital right now, suffered a heart attack. So we do wish him the best and a very speedy recovery. I know you love Mark.
And Mark was feeling strange for hours and hours, right? And that's what we have to recognize as older people, myself at least, when something starts to feel off, you need to really pay attention. And when Mark realized that this isn't going away, he decided to go to the hospital and save his life. So we really pay attention, guys, as you get older, younger, doesn't matter. When things start to feel a little off, call a doctor. I don't know what it is about people that make them not want to go see a doctor. Go see the doctor. Make sure you're good. And luckily, we still get to keep Mark Coleman and have him around for a while. I mean, these guys, Randy Couture too. Randy Couture was training and had a heart attack. Imagine if Randy and them, or they didn't recognize Randy need to go see a doctor. We could be without right now Randy Couture and Mark Coleman. That's so sad, right? And we're lucky that they're still here.
Thank you for that, DC. By the way, shout out to the 7-2 Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen killing it yesterday. And last but not least, I do want to say it's a sad day in the world of TV and in Canadian history as the great Alex Trebek, the longtime host of Jeopardy, passed away yesterday due to pancreatic cancer. So a very sad day. Did you watch that show?
Sad day. Yeah, and Alex Trebek was a part of our lives growing up, right? For as long as we've been watching television, we saw Alex Trebek. Fun fact, King Mo, the greatest Jeopardy player of all time.
Really?
I don't know if I've told you this before.
No.
I've been in hotels with Mo whenever we're getting ready to wrestle, and the people on TV are like, I'll take outstanding quarterbacks for 400, and they're like, and Trebek goes, this person did it. Mo's like, Joe Montana. Wow. But not even not just sports. I'm talking sports because I know sports. Yeah. But like give me famous astronomers for 1,000.
Wow.
And then Mo's like, so-and-so. Like, he's the greatest If Mo would have ever got the chance to play Jeopardy, I am 100% certain King Mo would win all the money. He'd go on like a 10-week streak on Jeopardy. So
I had no idea.
Sad to lose Alex Trebek. Hopefully, his family's doing okay in this difficult time.
On that note, DC, we are out of time.
No, really?
That's it. Yeah. You want more, right?
Come on. This is great.
Cormier getting very upset. He's like, oh, we got to go. I got a lunch date or something he has to get to. I don't know. He's got to go work out or something. I don't know, DC. I don't call the rules. I don't call the shots around here. I don't make the rules, I should say. But I just want to thank you for your time. It's good to have you back in your studio over there on the West Coast. And I hope you guys are okay with the cold front that has hit Northern California.
Freezing.
I know you're very
35 degrees here. It's crazy. It's freezing.
Thank you to everyone who continues to rate, download, subscribe, and review. Thank you to all the crazy YouTube commenters. We see you all. We are live right now, so we're gonna go get something to eat on this lunchtime. And thanks to the whole team who put the show together each and every week. All right, we'll see what happens as far as the UFC main event is concerned this weekend. For now, though, we're out of time. For DC, I'm Ariel. Back next week, same time and place. Tell us, peace. We're out of here.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.